So I haven't worked with you guys in like quite a while, and so talking about, or just like fill me in, like with any celebrations that you guys want to share. I know, like how's platooning going? Like just any celebrations that you want to start out this meeting with.
I like our new rotation,
Mm-hmm.
math stations, and our more small group instruction, our targeted small group instruction. I think that's really helping, especially our neediest.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also good for the higher kiddos, in that they don't spend as much time doing things that they maybe already know. You know, they get to, you know, the ones who learn it quick kind of get to hear it quick and then get to work.
Get to work and challenge themselves.
Yeah, challenge themselves and challenge each other.
Yeah, they're really working on that, challenging each other.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think that's really good.
I also think, like, sometimes it's hard to totally monitor this, but we've been really working on their like discussions, feedback to each other, questioning each other, and not just like, if somebody has a question, not just being like, oh, here's how you do it, or you know, like, it's hard to tell when they're working independently because we're always with the group, but I feel like with the group that I'm with, I feel like it's been good to see like how they are sort of talking and pushing each other without just giving each other the answer or telling them how to do it or whatever.
And how
They're more comfortable.
how are you getting kids to do that? Like, what are the intentional strategies that you guys have used to get kids to that place? Because I think that's like an important piece, because obviously like your instruction or protocols or like something that you've done have gotten kids to that place.
I think in general that this group came in with a solid sort of foundation of just accountable talk, like after having had it since they've been here. And so part of it's just been really being very explicit and talking with them about like how, you know, how to give feedback without just telling someone how to do something, like how to ask questions. We've given them sentence stems, questions that they could use.
Modeling how to give an answer. I mean, how to work through something that may not be up to par. So, you know, favorite knows, modeling that with the kids.
Yeah.
Providing plenty of time for them to practice it. So role playing what this should look like, and then turning around and having the whole group do it. So a lot of role play.
And it sounds like it's a lot of upfront work on your part with that role playing and with that modeling, but there's definitely a payoff in the end, and then it starts to transfer over to what kids are doing. Awesome. So before we get started, I just want to revisit the curriculum map, just so you guys can kind of see, like, remember the curriculum map that we did on those August Blue-Green days? And I don't know, like, I didn't put unit numbers, so I'm not exactly sure. Are you guys in this unit?
We're in 3. We're behind, but we're in 3.
Okay.
Fractions and decimals.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Which is, November. Got it. Somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, we're probably, oh no.
How are you guys feeling?
I don't know how many weeks behind. We're behind.
Well,
I mean,
the
I think
platooning
it's
and everything kind of that happened, but I
Well,
just wanted to revisit this so you can see like what you said and
well, that's what the district laid out.
Yeah.
But and I know we still need to get through stuff. In particular, I know there's a big push to get through, you know, I think Pam said 6 by Park. But
this is also a very big unit.
it is, but I also know like everybody's behind. Like everybody's Like when I've gone to the monthly trainings, pretty much everybody's in the same place.
There.
Mhm.
So everybody's kind of behind because it's really hard to, the implementation, like the learning curve for
New.
this.
Yes.
And I was even, like, I was helping my neighbor, who's a 4th grader, with his homework a couple days ago. And he's only about a week and a half ahead of us.
Oh,
And
okay.
they taught Bridges last year.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay, like, because I've been feeling panicky, but I'm also kind of like, okay, like, breathe a little bit. And, like, Littleton, who's already done it for a year, is only a week and a half ahead of us. That's not terrible.
So, if you were to like rearrange or like change that end date, how far would you push it back to like middle of December? Like, would you be finished with this unit before
Oh, yeah.
I
break?
hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've got 4 weeks.
I hope so. And also, I don't know if the district.
Lonnie, we need paper towels, please, in the boys'
I
bathroom.
mean, they didn't account for that whole week off of Thanksgiving. That's like
No.
October. You know what I mean? That's a big one. And then we had a. I don't know what they account for, but
I don't know either. I think they do
Couple-
when they create the
3 days off in October they've had too.
yeah.
They've had. We
Okay.
haven't. Well, we have.
Yeah.
All right.
So I wonder about that because yeah. I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah.
We know
I
it's
think-
a big one, but I think we're on. I mean, we're moving. So, yeah. But we've also had to spend time testing. We had to do iReady. We had the one yesterday took some kids 15 minutes, took other kids almost an hour. And we have to give it, and they have to finish it. So that's not. I can't just say, okay, sorry, you're done. Which I actually had to, and said we're going to finish later.
Well, and then some of those units like geometry and like later on
Yeah.
with a lot
Yeah.
of these units, when you get to the Bridges training with Courtney, I mean, she's not facilitating yours, but like
Yeah.
maybe there's pieces in some of those other units that don't have like those year-long focus standards.
Yeah.
That, I mean, yes, they're
For sure.
important, but there's other standards that are more important to
Yeah.
get them ready for 5th grade. So I think that
Mhm.
there's places that you might be able to cut later.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
in this unit, it's going to be. You can't really
You
cut
can't.
anything
No,
in this
we're
unit
not,
because
yeah.
it's fractions and decimals, and so like,
Right.
this is like
I wish we had cut that one in Unit 1, that 4th mod in Unit 1.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
because that was just
Now
random.
and now we know. I mean,
But,
that's
yeah.
part
And
of
it's the first year,
their
yeah.
learning
this
curve.
is-
Yeah.
We're like, but maybe it's there for a reason. Like,
Yeah.
but it was totally unrelated to the rest of the module and whatever. But I did ask Courtney that because she said that there are some optional modules, but I don't know what they are, and so not maybe optional, but sort of optional.
Mhm.
And so I did ask her if she could let us know what those are. But
okay. Yeah, that would be good to know. Okay, so let's dive into the work. So the standard is NBT B5, and it's multiply a whole number of up to 4 digits by a 1-digit whole number and multiply 2 2-digit numbers using strategies. And so, like, that was what they did in number 5. So before we get, like, look into the work, how would you describe that standard in your own words of, like, what mastery would look like?
Could you read it again one more time?
Yeah, and I should have printed them for you guys, so I apologize, and I don't have my phone with it, but it was,
that's okay. Yeah.
it's kind of small to read, but.
I would say that it's like that they're able to do the multi-digit multiplication and that they're able to basically that they have to have a strategy. So some kids are learning the standard algorithm. Not very many. Some are trying it and they shouldn't be because they're not ready for it. But you know, some kids can do that. Some kids are doing more of like a partial oh my god. Partial product. Couldn't think of the word. Partial product. Some kids are doing area models where they're breaking apart, you know, the 10s and the 1s.
So in terms of like what you would say is mastery, like what would your expectations be? So you mentioned the algorithm. Is it an expectation that students do an algorithm, or
No.
at this point it's just they're doing the model?
Not the standard algorithm at this point. In fact, it's not taught at all.
And that's what I was going to bring up, because when I was looking at this book that Pam ordered, and it just talks about all the standards and it kind of unpacks all of them. And it says students should understand arrays and area models, But then somewhere in here, it is not necessary for students to use or write your standard algorithm at this time.
Yeah. I don't
So-
know, when exactly do they expect
So-
them to do it?
They don't, 5th grade.
Oh,
So
not at all.
However, in the last previous years, we had always done it in 4th grade, and some kids really liked it, and some kids, you know, chose a different model or chose a different strategy. So I don't know. I think that's a shift for me this year because I've always done it. I've done it for years. In addition to the other ways. So, but this year they're saying no. It's not even in there.
And why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that they would say that the algorithm isn't taught now and it's going to be taught in 5th grade?
I think because they need the kids to understand what they're doing, what multiplication is, and what it looks like, and why what it is.
So
I mean,
the conceptual
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so, like, when you asked about the distributive property, so the whole idea with the distributive property really is helping to build that foundation of understanding when you do the standard algorithm, how you're multiplying your tens and how you're multiplying your ones.
Mm-hmm. The place
And
value.
I think that I think the stopping off place probably this year, I don't know if you would agree, would be then if it's not going to be the standard algorithm, that it would be partial products.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because once they get to 4-digit multiplication,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, area models are going to get kind of ridiculous.
I think even 2 by 2 is sometimes hard for the kids, especially our kids who aren't really solid in addition and subtraction and don't have the building blocks. So I think, that's why it's a little hard for me to just stick to those strategies.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and some kids might be ready to be pushed. Like you mentioned, Karen, about some kids are using the algorithm, but they're not doing it correctly.
right.
Or they're like trying.
Some kids are having parents teach
It's
them at
their
home,
parents.
and they have no idea what they're. I mean, not that the parents don't know what they're doing, but that the parents show the kids, and it doesn't correlate to what we're doing,
Yeah.
and it's just confusing them. But the parents don't know because that's
They're
how we
defaulting to
learned
how-
it.
yeah.
And they're like, I don't understand what you're doing.
So
Here's how I do it, and some kids have picked it up and get it
Yeah.
because we haven't done it in here.
No.
But some kids are able to do it because they've been taught it elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, let's quickly create an exemplar together. And so I printed off the problem for you guys. And we'll just take a couple minutes to solve it. We can do it together if you want, or you can do it independently.
Okay. I can't think of the word I made. gosh.
I remember seeing this in the.
Do you guys want to compare?
Yeah, I'm not really done, but I'm struggling because what I started to do was to use the standard algorithm to prove it, and then I'm like, but that's not what we're expecting them to do. So then I'm like, oh, like,
Partial products, I guess, is what I think most of them, or area model partial products. I'm gonna show you what the book said. Just like to see what Bridges says. And they basically said, I remember looking at it, that he's breaking it apart. And that's, I mean, this is kid friendly, you know, I mean, do we expect them to say distributive?
I think
Something that,
I think that could maybe be one of those things that could push a kid to a 4.
yeah.
They should know distributive property, but if they don't, to me, like if they still understand that you're able to break apart,
Yeah.
what's the word for one of the, oh my gosh, I'm totally drawing a blank. All I can think is dividend, and that is not the right word. Like I know, no. One of these numbers is the,
Divisor?
no, because that's
Oh.
for division.
'Cause
That's
that's for
why I'm like, I
division.
can't think of the word for multiplication.
I know.
I'm like, what is wrong with
We
my
haven't
brain?
even used them though in our teaching. That's the thing. We haven't.
Tactor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, so you can, the distributive property allows us to break apart
By place value.
factor.
This was a checkpoint. That's
Yeah. Unit 2, mod 3. Yeah, so I think,
So in your exemplar,
uh-huh,
you have a model,
mm-hmm,
you have an explanation,
mm-hmm,
and the explanation at this point, like you're saying, can just be explaining how the problem is broken apart. It doesn't necessarily need to be explaining
This-
the algorithm or
The
like
steps.
yeah, right?
Well, the
You-
question was asked, do you agree with the way he's solving it? It didn't say,
But
you know, it said, do you agree or disagree?
so what would you
Anything.
expect that explanation to sound like?
So, as I was grading this, it was kind of more like, can they agree with him? Do they agree with him that yes, that can work? Why does that work? I guess. Can they explain why that works?
And that's the piece
And
I
that's
think
the
that's
breaking
like
down.
the mathematical part of like that why. Why do you agree? Why do you disagree?
mm-hmm.
So looking at what you guys created, and I know you're still looking for it in Bridges, but these are the kiddos that you gave a 3 to.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
know.
I just want I just
It
want to see how they match up to what your expectations are for the model that you just created, or if you feel like these kids have enough or they could have had more, or like what are your noticings?
It was hard because I felt like there were no 4s, but it was hard.
Was this a
because-
4-point problem? Like what? I wasn't sure about that either, and so like even just like
No,
grading.
well, we're doing kind of our own.
We decided to not use bridges, and we're just going back to the 1, 2, 3, 4 that we have on our report card and that we've always used.
So
Okay.
are they
So
meeting
even
the
though
standard?
bridges doesn't do it that way?
Okay. Do you have a pencil? I can't remember. So like if we think about like, because that's why I had the 1, 2, 3. Like we don't even need to really do 1s really, but like the 3s and the 4s. Like what would be
So
characteristics of a 4? I know you mentioned that they would use distributive property in their
their
explanation,
explanation, like the actual correct mathematical
and they would have a model, and they would have.
equation.
So even though it doesn't call out that they have to do that part until 5th grade, you would expect that for a 4.
Not the
Period.
standard algorithm, but like
The way that you wrote it there.
yeah,
Okay.
or even like here, how he showed, okay, 10 plus 2 equals 12, right? So that X, and I know this isn't a 4, but like basically like he's explaining why it's
It's broken
10
up.
and 2. The 12 was broken up into 10 and 2 to make it easier. And then he's also got the equation showing, bless you, how he got his answer.
Bless you. Yeah.
That's where to me, a 4 could potentially be a kiddo. Like what I would do is then I would use the standard algorithm to show that I got the same answer. But we can't
A different
expect them to
strategy.
do that because
We haven't taught.
we haven't taught it. So,
Here's what they say. Explanations will vary. An array that is 12 by 14 can be split into 2 arrays, 10 by 14 and 2 by 14. So that's the bridges. That's what
And
they,
I feel like this
So-
model would show that.
right.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, so that's why I feel like they got that concept that it needs to be broken up. This one was interesting because, yeah, they broke it up 2 by 14, 10 by 14, and then solved it and then added it up.
Yeah, I
So-
think that's a good. And so
so
even though it
it's a-
doesn't have an area
It
model,
doesn't, yeah.
the ratio table is showing what 2 and 10 is,
Yeah.
and then adding them together gets you the same answer as
Yeah.
12.
So it's kind of 2 different ones. I mean, there's other examples, but
Yeah. So then looking at some of the 2s, like this kiddo, I'll just bring up really quick because I don't know. Help
So-
me understand why he was a 2 and not a 3.
because he said, I agree, because this times this, I solved the problem by doing 2 area models, but he didn't get it right. The answer was not right.
Oh, because it was, well, what did you say the answer
168.
is? Where's his answer?
168.
So he didn't,
140.
and then I also wondered, I was concerned about his force, but
I know.
I was a little concerned about that.
I know.
So that's why I concluded that one, so that way I'd remember to talk to you about it. But yeah, so that's sort of why I got a 2, because I felt like he knew.
Conceptually, it was just
Yeah.
like a mathematical.
Yeah, and I think if
Error.
you get a 3, you need to know how to get that answer.
True. I guess I overlooked
Yeah.
the final answer when I was just looking at his models and just glancing at it. It was.
And maybe I should have looked at do you agree or disagree part, but it was more like, well, he figured that first step out, but he couldn't take it to that next. He can, but he
Yeah, he's saying this is equal to this in his in this model.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even if he had gotten the right, and this is actually one thing I wanted to talk with you about. Like, I feel like even if there was a small computational error, if the thinking was solid, that you could still get a 3. But it would have to be, say, something like, let's say he had the right thinking, but maybe he got maybe for 2 times 14 he made a mistake and wrote 24. And then he said the answer was 164, and then this also reflected 164. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I would be like, okay, that was a tiny computational
Right.
error of 2 times 14,
Yeah.
but all of the thinking showed that he understood. But in this case,
I just
it doesn't match.
It doesn't match, and so that's why it was kind of like, okay, he's
Yeah.
on his way for sure.
Yeah. So then was another 2, and again, like,
Same kind of
the
thing.
model was what I was thinking here, but I wasn't sure because I don't know.
Well, and it was. I agree because you could do it like this. There
Uh-huh.
was no
Like the mathematical part wasn't
Yep.
wasn't a part of the explanation.
right. He didn't actually explain.
He explained his thinking with numbers
Right.
instead of words.
Right. And I think we were asking for, do you agree? Like, we were asking for a more complete sentence or a couple of sentences instead of, because you can do it like this. Yes, you can. And yes. And so that was one reason why he got the right answer. So it was kind of the flip flop of the other one. Like, he got the right answer. He knew.
But his
he had-
explanation just needed to
needed
be
more with
able
that.
to
Mhm.
Explain in
understand
words.
his thinking more.
Yes.
Okay.
Or Lily, actually. That was Lily.
So then looking at
Which
like
I was happy to see that.
Yeah, no, I mean, she did great work.
Yeah.
She just needs to work on her explanation.
Mm-hmm.
and I know you said you guys are doing like in the small group instruction a lot. So like
So
the ones are gonna need
Clearly.
more support with that.
Right.
But like thinking about like what those groups look like and like some of the 2s just need like a little bit more to get them
Yep.
to that next level.
Mhm.
So what would that reteach look like and sound like? Like what are you noticing that are the gaps that these kids would need?
I think I would take almost like a favorite no, do kind of a favorite no thing and say, all right, let's look at the problem. What is it asking? Do you agree or disagree? Why? So kind of first start there and ask and really get it from the kids. What is this problem asking you to do? Is it just asking you to find the answer with numbers and kind of start from there and then analyze, do exactly what we're doing.
Would you do that whole group or would you do that in a station when like and have maybe the kids that have that minor misconception to discover it themselves, or like even these 3 kiddos, like would you want them to be a part of that conversation, or what would that look like?
So far, we've been doing favorite no and favorite yes.
Whole group.
Yeah, but part of it is because it's
The conversation needs to be facilitated.
I think even
Yeah.
these guys need. They. I think it's the beginning of the year. It's not the beginning of the year, but as we move towards, the spring, these guys have a better understanding. But I still think they all need a little guidance because they're not all doing 100% great job every time.
Right.
So I think it can only help. And then I also like it when these kids can hear these kids talk. And they're kind of somewhere in the middle, So I think it's valuable, as long as it doesn't last too long. But it's valuable for everyone to see it, and then turning and having that discussion.
So what would be your favorite no? Because there's 2 different like you can go a couple different directions with this.
just to add on to it too. I also did a favorite no and a favorite yes last week. So we did the favorite no, and then we looked at what's the evidence of some really good thinking here, and then what could we add to make it a yes. And then we took a yes and said, okay, what's the good thinking here? But what could we do to make this one better? And I think the other part of that is then that also pushes those higher kids for how can we turn this into a 4? I didn't say it literally, how can we turn it into a 4? But it was like, so this is still a yes, this is a 3, but what else could we have here? So that's one piece I think of doing a whole group as well that can be good is whether it's favorite no or favorite yes.
So what if, just a thought, like you did the My Favorite No in a slightly different format and you had kids broken out into groups, and like you were saying, you want these kids to be able to hear the conversations, and like you strategically like group them with some of the higher kids, some of the kids that like had that common misconception, and they talked about the favorite no, and you had those guiding questions that you would do whole group, but they facilitated that conversation in small groups first, and then they came back and shared, and like group shared of like, this is what I would add, or this is what I would add, or this is what I noticed.
Sure.
I don't know, just a thought of like a different, so that kids are.
It's a good Wednesday thing too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say it could
But
be
yeah.
kind of in place of big brain.
Big brain, yeah.
Today we can't because it's such
Yeah.
a guided lesson.
Right.
Today we're just doing it whole group all day.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, I think that could be a really good strategy.
Or what if you gave them both of these? What if both of these were your favorite no? Because I think both of these have valuable teaching points,
Mm-hmm.
and you like do half of the class evaluates this problem, half of the class evaluates this problem, and then you talk about both of them. So they understand like the explanation piece is huge and it's important, and they need to explain more of that mathematical reasoning, and then the importance of like models and I don't know, just
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
How would you want to execute this?
Well, I think the other thing that's hard is that in order to do that, I mean, we have to keep going with our lessons, as
Yeah.
I
we've
know.
discussed. We're already
You do.
behind by however many weeks. So,
Could this be a station?
But
maybe.
it requires us. I think if we can spend some time showing them, but it still requires us to facilitate it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just say. I feel like if we just said right now, what's missing from this one in the station, they would talk for 2 seconds and then start messing around. You know what I mean? It really
Right.
still requires a lot of guidance from us.
Right.
Or
Well,
in
plus
a
our
station-
stations are not
They're not.
mixed grouping because
Yeah, they're not. Well, they could. Yeah, they're not at this point. But
Well, it'd be really hard because we've got Brittany supporting kids, Lori supporting kids, we're with kids.
Can
and
Lori
so-
do like this with the kids that would need it, maybe? Or I don't know. Or Brittany?
Brittany.
Well, but she's
Yeah.
doing that day's lesson
Oh, she is.
with kids,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so giving extra support.
I understand
Um,
what you guys are saying
you
now,
know,
because like
yeah,
there's an
and-
urgency.
When I had
To
Lori
reteach.
doing this, she was teaching standard algorithm. Like,
Right.
She doesn't know, and I don't have
we don't have time
with
to
her
teach
to.
her.
So we're having her do like lessons from iReady of those real foundational
Mm-hmm.
skills.
Yeah.
Like our kids who don't understand the 2-digit number stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, that's where we're at. Yeah. Well, clearly. That.
So I guess I'm not sure. Like I think it's the perpetual problem, isn't it? Like as you move on and kids are behind, where
Yeah.
do you fit it in?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to be a reteach whole group? Can it? I know you're doing like very targeted instruction for the kids that are like getting ones, but can at some point can like a group like can you go through the other kids' data and just give these kids the descriptive feedback that they would need to push them along, and it doesn't have to be
Right.
like a whole group
Mhm.
it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, because I think it can be just targeted to the kids that
Yeah.
need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
I just don't know when.
I know. I know.
Part of me feels like I'd rather do that than do number corner. But
Well,
we
then
have to
maybe-
do number corner. Like, I mean,
I know.
the clock stuff is great, but well, the problem strings, the addition problem string thing was actually really good last week as well. But like,
Can
it's,
you? I'm just thinking
It's
because
just
I don't
no,
know.
I know. It's just the time that's
What
stressing
if
me out. I
one
completely
day-
agree that we need to do it.
What if one day there wasn't a number corner, and then another day it was like you did 2 number corners?
Mhm.
Would that be possible?
Yeah, it might be. Depends on what. I think it's more so on maybe on my days because the calendar can go faster.
Yeah.
The kids that are getting the calendar are getting it. I didn't do yesterday,
Right.
but yesterday I didn't do it because I already. It's okay.
Well,
This one's. We're gonna finish it up after break.
the other deal is that I'm only doing problem strings because we
Yeah.
have library cutting into our time and we have the short Wednesday, so I only get a full time on Friday.
When we're only doing
So-
social days 1 day a week. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even cut. We can't cut into that.
Oh gosh, no. No.
Okay, I started thinking
Oh
about it,
no,
I was
I'm
like,
not
no.
saying that at all.
Oh, I know you're not. I was just thinking there's no.
Well, and that's the other issue is that there's even things like from, I think the reteaching piece is what's really stressing me out because our
Yeah.
kiddos, we have a third of our class that is significantly below grade level in math. And they need to reteach on this. They need to reteach on
Everything.
our new fraction stuff that we're teaching or more support with it. they need a reteach on, God, there was something else I was just thinking of a minute ago that,
Well, they don't
the
know how to do
computational
this.
fluency
Yeah.
from Number Corner that we're not doing with the whole class.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be fitting in small groups for them to do that piece because they don't have that.
So how would you prioritize those things? Like, what are you feeling like?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is huge,
Mhm.
but underlying it is if they don't have computational fluency, that's a problem.
Because they can't even do
So
this.
would you want to
access
do?
that.
Well, these kids can.
Those kids can, yeah.
Yeah,
these
some of
kids-
them
but
can.
these
Yeah,
ones get,
these
like-
kids are the ones these kids, yes, these are the ones that I'm really, really worried about because
Yeah.
these
But you
kids,
have a
already
structure in
got-
place for these ones, right?
yeah, and they already got extra attention with this and they're still at the one.
And some of them
And
are
so that's what's really,
even in sped with, at a separate time with,
yeah.
station.
And I know, like
That's
these
what's
kids, it's going to take them a little
really-
bit longer because they do have some other challenges in math. That's like now that they're getting to more challenging math, it's going to get them, you know. But you
Yeah.
have a structure in place to meet their needs. It seems like with doing the small group instruction for these particular kiddos. But then when we're thinking about the reteach of
Yeah.
what this looks
Yeah.
like, you know, like that's why I'm thinking that, like, can.
It might
I
be a
think
number
we
corner.
could, for some of these kiddos, we could put it in stations.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't
Oh,
probably
yeah.
be a whole rotation, but if we gave, you know, his group this and said, you know, try to turn that into a 4. What can you do to improve this? What's missing?
Or how you
And
even,
then have a quick conversation. I think that that is true.
and even if you did,
But for these kids, I don't
no.
know. Like they're already.
It's not.
no,
Gonna-
their
I don't think
reteach
it's
is going to
worth
be
the time.
different. Their
Yeah.
reteach is going to be different. But if you did that in stations and you gave kids like, I don't know what this would look like, but like the difference between a 3 and a 4, or maybe you only gave them characteristics of what a 4 would look like and sound like,
Mm-hmm.
and you said here is the problem. Looking at what the expectations are, like you let them know the expectations ahead of time so they know what they're shooting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe with some like guiding questions to get them there. And it's just, I know like sometimes it's tricky to like give up that control because like you want to facilitate those conversations all the time, and when you don't know what those conversations
Yeah,
are sounding
That's
like,
it. I think that's it for me. Yeah.
and I know that that can be
Yeah.
challenging sometimes, but like see how it goes,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
maybe you even have them, like you will have them turn something in,
Sure.
and then if they can make those changes and make this work look like a 4, then you'll know that it was successful and that they were having good conversations.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to implement that into your station, do you think?
Well,
Maybe Thursday or Friday?
that falls on you. What do you think of
So, so I have to think. Today is going to be a whole group. We're not even doing big brain because they're making fraction strips.
that? Is there anything interrupting the rest of the week or the week before break there?
Library. Maybe on Friday. Because tomorrow is also GT kids get pulled, so they don't have all their station time. I think the thing is it won't be specifically just targeted to the kids who are 2s.
No, I think that's okay.
It's gonna be, just because of the way stations work, it's probably just gonna be everybody except for the 2 lower groups
Yeah,
who are with
so I
the
was thinking-
teacher extra time.
I
But the
think the
other
3 of
3
them
groups
Could handle it.
could
in both
do it,
groups. Mm-hmm. I think the 3 of them.
and that could just be a collaboration station.
Mm-hmm.
I think Friday would probably be the easiest time to make that happen.
Is there a way that, I know that the GT kids are really working on this with
Yeah.
Susan. Is there a way they could not facilitate, but
I know, I thought about
is that
It's
like,
just hard because of where everybody
'Cause we're-
goes
yeah.
and when,
Yeah.
but
just a thought, I don't know.
I know.
But I don't know that, I mean, they can't be in place of us, obviously.
I sometimes feel like though it's better for those middle kids to kind of maybe almost muster through it themselves, because the GT kids are, sometimes they're not always, like, they just want to tell them.
Yeah.
Because they get it.
Right.
And so maybe
Right.
it's better if those middle kids are sort of supporting each other.
Yeah.
But then you look at a Lily who's in a targeted group, and she, like, when do we get her that? Because she's not going to be a part of that.
Right.
But look at what an awesome job she did here.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's even, maybe we need to think about how we can also, like last year, I had some really nice time where I could sometimes just pull kids one-on-one. Or it could be just a very flexible who I pulled at, you know, and just pull them for a few minutes. So I almost wonder if one rotation we try to be out of it, or, you know, not every day, but.
Or could we just,
I don't know.
could we just do something like a fishbowl, and we just sit and watch? I don't know what happens here, but is that something that, you know, we can just have like two fishbowls going on or something, and we just sit back and watch and kind of make some quick observations?
The only thing with the
although that's-
fishbowl, I love the idea, but to go back to like how you guys are feeling about like being behind, like if you do
Yeah.
a fishbowl,
Yeah.
then like
it's gonna
other,
take up-
it's gonna take.
No, I agree.
Well, and when we were in it, we were doing that. Not necessarily fishbowl, but we were doing favorite
Yeah.
yes as a whole class, because that was
Right.
our unit. But now we're on to fractions, and
I think it makes sense.
it still really
personally
matters, but it's.
to do this in a station and put it on the kids, and I just feel like thinking about guiding questions, like if they're facilitating that group, like what guiding questions would you ask them? Like if you just put some questions down at the table, you gave them the work, like we can script those questions now, like what
That's
would
what I
they
was thinking.
Well, I always like to just ask, what's the evidence of good thinking here? Because I think it's really important to value the good thinking that is happening, so that they're more willing to keep thinking.
I love that.
What is?
And that's how I started my favorite no.
Would you want that to be something that like it's just the questions and the kids are just talking, or would you want that to be there's talking but then there's also an accountability piece and you have to jot down your ideas of the evidence so that they can like share it with
Maybe
you?
like a protocol sheet almost.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's see.
What did I say? What is the evidence
of good thinking?
Is good a bad word there though? Of effective thinking, of
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
If you wanna
strategic. I don't know.
Or you could say like good mathematical thinking. I think you could still say
I think-
good, but because I think the mathematical thinking is going to get to like this kiddo who just said you do it like this. Like although he's showing mathematical thinking with numbers, I feel like when you're teaching kids to write explanations, it's like a third grader should be able to pick this up and read it and understand what you're talking about. But when, kids just, third graders are just going to see these numbers, they're not going to understand the mathematical thinking that's taking place.
Okay. Another question.
What is the question asking you to do? I mean, that's always usually my first one is what.
Okay, we can
What
start
is
with
it?
that one.
Yeah, kind of like what is it even saying here? Like kind of the difference of is it asking you to just provide an answer or a numerical answer or number answer or
Right.
a statement? Because sometimes they look at that and they like I was saying
They're just trying to solve it.
right. They look at
Rather
that
than
and they just
explain.
solve it. A lot of kids just go, oh, I'm just going to solve that. I agree. Yes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is it even asking you to do? This why part.
Yeah.
And then you have specific expectations for your kids. Like it doesn't say that they have to provide a model.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't say that, but you expected it. And so would your next step be these are the expectations that of how like you were supposed to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Given our class expectations of providing a model, like analyze the model, analyze
Mhm.
like would you want them to like do that next, and then they can pinpoint like the model's not. I don't know.
I would say, no matter what, they need to have something like RDW.
Right.
I mean, no matter
Or
what.
maybe that's how you ask it. You
Yes.
say a class
Yes.
expectation is RDW.
Yep.
Analyze the drawing
Mhm.
and the writing. How could you make the model better?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not how, maybe can you, because and then analyzing the explanation.
So I think that's something that maybe they can even ask themselves is there RDW in your answer?
Mm-hmm.
Since that's what we've been asking them to do for weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that?
Maybe
in
that's
that-
literally a yes, no,
Well,
and then
yes.
okay, what if it's even just something like, what do you notice about the model?
Mhm.
What do you notice? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's not enough to say what do you notice.
Well, that's
It
what I was
needs to
just
also
thinking.
be like, what?
Because
Maybe
if
we
you
need
say,
to add
is there
something to the
RDW in
question.
your answer, they're going to say,
Right.
yep, it looks like they read
Yeah,
it, they
there are
have a
words,
drawing, they
yeah.
wrote it. But the,
That's yeah.
Where is
the quality-
where's the evidence of RDW or something like that?
Or how
How is this representing RDW? Something like that. How is it? Like and that means that they have to go through. They have a model. They have a. They recognize there's a
But we
model.
want-
They recognize there's a statement.
and I know in
what
Susan's
I'm
room
saying?
they talk about like GT quality
Yeah.
work. And so like I wonder if you guys spin it of like something about like quality, you know, like analyzing I don't know.
I don't necessarily want to say GT quality to
No, you
everybody.
wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say that.
I have a real
No.
hard time with saying GT anyways to kids because they always feel bad about it.
And we have to get beyond just, yes, there's a model, to like,
Right.
is the model effective?
Right. Right.
Is the
Is
model
the model-
represented in the right way?
But we don't want it
Um,
yes or no.
Is the model demonstrating understanding of the
How do you
model?
know? You could always
Right.
add
How do you
how
know?
do you know? So they
Mhm.
have to explain.
So is the model demonstrating their understanding and how do you know?
Maybe it's a, if yes, how do you know?
Yeah.
If not, how could you make it better?
Right.
True. Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh my God, is the model
This is what I'm
Nancy, what is the code for the Wi-Fi?
demonstrating?
their understanding
Wi-Fi are you trying to get on?
of the problem, and if yes, then we go.
Student, is he a user or?
If yes, how? And then if no,
Tim, speech therapist for Audrey's browser needs to get on our Wi-Fi. with
basically
her
what needs to happen, what is missing.
Or what would you add?
What would you, yeah.
I'm also wondering, after they go through this process, if you then have like a separate folder and it's like a secret folder, you can't open this folder until you go through these steps, and in
Mhm.
that folder is the exemplar,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go through this process, and then they like take out the exemplar and say like, what does our
And they
work sound
compare
like
them.
now, and then they
Mhm.
compare,
Mm-hmm.
because they might go through this whole process and still not make the gains that you want them to make.
Right.
But they go through this process first, and then they have like the secret folder. You can't open it up
Mhm.
until you go through these questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then they compare what they have with what it should look like.
Right.
We still need another question about the explanation.
Oh yeah.
So,
Would it be the same thing that you guys asked for model? Is the explanation demonstrating?
Did they answer the question? Did they answer? Did they agree or disagree? I guess how would you say that?
but how effective? No. Where's the other two?
Like, did they answer about agreeing or
it's right.
disagreeing? Did they answer the question?
Well, they say yeah. They said I agree
so,
because you do it like this.
you know.
So
You want to know about the
Is there,
quality of the
is there
explanation.
answer, is there written explanation explaining their thinking? Yes or no? Is there,
how
how is there written explanation explaining their thinking? Because it is? No, I don't know, you know.
right? Or maybe we give them one where the written piece. Maybe we give them one like this, because you didn't even see what the problem was here. Maybe we give them this one, and
Mm-hmm.
and then just add like and just say
Mm-hmm.
how
How is
can
this
you
one?
improve on the written explanation,
Of this problem. There you go.
and don't ask does it or doesn't it. It doesn't.
Right. It doesn't.
How?
And maybe you're
Can
just
you make it better?
completely transparent with them in this process, and you just say, one of the reasons that this student received a 2 is because of their lack of,
The written.
their lack of, I wouldn't say explanation because they have an explanation, but their lack of detail in their explanation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons. And what would you need to add to it to get to a 3? Like what in this explanation is missing? Like you're just transparent with them. You say like, this isn't a good explanation. Like they're on their way. I wouldn't say a good explanation, but they need to have more. And what would you add? Like you just tell them up front. Like they got a 2, and one of the reasons is because of their explanation. They're missing that like detail piece.
I was trying to think of a way to ask it more generically so that if we create this little sort of protocol sheet, then we can use it again in the
I
future.
know. So it's just kind of standard.
Because, we've been meeting for 45 minutes and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like we can't do it every time. So what's a better question?
Well,
Does the model demonstrate understanding?
I think those that we came up with.
Does the written statement
How does the written statement answer the question?
I'm on my way.
What was that?
All right, I gotta go get Joaquin.